Prepare for a revolution. A revolution in muzzleloader reliability. In safety, in firepower, and in accuracy. Modern Muzzleloading Incorporated introduces a new revolution in front-loading technology for today's muzzleloading hunter. The Night Muzzleloading Rifle.
Hi, I'm Tony Knight. I've been a hunter for most of my life, and like millions of other hunters, I love the challenge and the satisfaction from hunting with a muzzleloader. But as a hunter, a gunsmith, and a bowsmith, I couldn't help but see the changes that was taking place in the archery tackle, such as a compound bow. So I got to thinking, why couldn't I combine the safety, the reliability, and the accuracy common with center fire into muzzleloading? That would make my muzzleloading hunting even more productive and satisfying. Well, I did exactly that. The end result was the Knight MK85 muzzleloading rifle. Without a doubt, the safest, most reliable, most accurate muzzleloader in the world today. You should try it and have a good, safe hunt. Thank you.
Let's take a look at the MK85 and the outstanding features you'll find on no other muzzleloading hunting rifle. In any configuration, the MK85 weighs 7 pounds or less and offers all the handling characteristics of a modern centerfire hunting rifle. The modern rifle style stock comes fitted with a custom rubber recoil pad and sling swivel studs. The improved stock lines for a muzzleloading hunting rifle result in less perceived recoil. The MK85 features a precision-cut rifled barrel made of the highest quality rifle-grade steel, ensuring unsurpassed accuracy, durability, and bore life. The patented Surefire inline ignition system offers today's shooter hesitation-free percussion ignition. This unique action design incorporates 2 separate safety systems: a side-mounted thumb-actuated trigger safety and a rear secondary safety hammer block, which make the MK85 without a doubt the safest muzzleloading rifle available today. With both safeties engaged, for added shooting control and to accommodate the personal preference of every shooter, the MK85 features a deluxe adjustable featherweight trigger. Modern muzzleloading recommends a minimum pull setting of 2.5 pounds. Whether the shooter relies on the quality adjustable rear sight and hooded front sight that is standard on all MK85 rifles, or elects to install a scope aboard the rifle, he can expect pinpoint accuracy. Every MK85 receiver comes drilled and tapped for easy mounting of a scope, or the serious hunter and target shooter can quickly install an optional peep sight. As with any high-quality sporting rifle, performance is determined by downrange accuracy and energy retention. With that in mind, the MK85 was designed and built to give the shooter maximum flexibility with a wide range of commercially available bullet types and weights, including saboed and heavy lead bullets. While this rifle was designed for hunting with hard-hitting conical bullets, the MK85 is still capable of delivering excellent accuracy with a patched round ball for target shooting or hunting, where the round ball is required by law. In 50 or 54 caliber, The MK85 rifle offers the shooter an unmatched selection of projectiles with which to pursue a variety of game or sports. Just watch how this 50 caliber sabot bullet penetrates these pine boards at 100 yards after being fired from a night rifle. There is currently an MK85 model that's ideal for every big game hunting situation, hunting condition, or terrain. While different models may feature a walnut, laminated, or composite stock, and the metal may be either blued or stainless steel, all MK85 rifles are loaded with the standard features we've just covered, and each is backed with a limited lifetime warranty. For the black powder shooter on a tight budget, Modern Muzzleloading has introduced two new very affordable night rifles, the BK92 Black Knight and the LK93 Night Legend. Both of these rifles are loaded with all the features that have made night rifles famous. Adjustable rear sight, patented double safety system, reliable inline percussion ignition, modern stock design with rubber recoil pad, receiver drilled and tapped for scope or peep sight, and easy takedown for cleaning. Night muzzle loading rifles and complete line of black powder accessories, together they create the safest, most accurate, reliable, and trouble-free muzzle-loading hunting rifle in the world today. Night muzzle-loading rifles provide superior performance at any price. All modern muzzle-loading rifles are made in Centerville, Iowa, USA. Your new night rifle is the best American-made muzzleloader you can buy. Night rifles are known for bringing quality and safety into the sport of muzzleloading. While traditional style muzzleloaders are equipped with no safeties, your new night rifle has not one, but two. This video is the first instructional video manual of its type, and it is included with every MK85 rifle. Black Knight and Night Legend owners may purchase the video as an accessory. This tape takes you from removing your new rifle from the box to loading, firing, sighting in, and cleaning your night rifle. It has been produced to assist you in using your rifle safely and effectively. For your convenience, the following information has been segmented into these sequences. Preparing your rifle to fire. Loading and firing your rifle. Sighting in your rifle. Cleaning your rifle. Assembly of your rifle. Tips for field use. And finally, safety tips. Remove your rifle and the accessory package which comes with all night rifles from the shipping carton. Before proceeding any further, read the instruction manual thoroughly. The accessory package that came with your rifle should include a combo tool, cleaning jag and extension, a 5/32 Allen wrench, a 3/32 Allen wrench, and a sample tube of modern muzzleloaders' saboed bullets. These tools are necessary for cleaning and maintaining your night rifle. Using a clean cloth, wipe away excess oil and grease from all metal surfaces. Examine the rifle thoroughly and familiarize yourself with the safety features. All modern muzzle-loading incorporated rifles are built with a double safety system. The primary safety is located on the right side of the rifle and is activated by moving it forward or rearward with your thumb. The safety is in the firing position when it is forward toward the red dot just ahead of the safety. The secondary safety is located on the rear of the hammer. When this safety is threaded forward to cover the red ring, the hammer is blocked from falling forward far enough to strike the nipple. Only when this safety is in this position should the rifle be considered safe from accidental firing. To fire, screw the nut counterclockwise all the way to the rear of the hammer to completely expose the red ring. When both safeties show red, your rifle is ready to fire. These safeties are explained in your instruction manual. The ramrod is approximately the length of the barrel. When it is inserted into the barrel and drops in flush with the muzzle, the barrel is free from obstructions. If the ramrod does not drop all the way in, there is a blockage in the barrel, and the rifle must be disassembled and the obstruction removed. The disassembly of the rifle is covered later in this video and in your instruction manual under Removing Hammer Assembly and Breech Plug to Clear Bore. Once you have determined that the bore is clear, remove all oil from inside the bore, nipple, and breech plug. This is accomplished by pushing a clean, dry patch down the bore using your ramrod with the cleaning jag and ramrod extension attached. Remove the patch, turn it over to the clean side, and again push it down the bore until the patch and ramrod bottom out against the face of the breech plug. Leave the ramrod and patch in the bore. Then put on shooting glasses and hearing protection and fire 3 percussion caps. Remember that both safeties have to be in the red firing position. This will blow all oil and grease out of the nipple and breech plug and onto the patch. Remove the ramrod and patch and examine the patch. If your ignition system is clear, the patch will indicate so with a dark burnt area. You are now ready to load your rifle. We again ask that you make sure to wear proper ear and eye protection when firing your rifle. Place both safeties in the safe position. The thumb safety should be back and the secondary safety should be screwed all the way forward to completely cover the red ring. Using a separate powder flask and measure, fill the measure. We recommend starting with 90 to 100 grains of FFG or Pyrodex RS. Pour the charge into the muzzle. Be sure to always keep the muzzle pointed away from the body. You're now ready to insert the projectile you've chosen. We recommend a plastic sabot with one of the Knight Big Game muzzle loading bullets. Place the sabot and bullet into the muzzle of your rifle. If the bullet fits too tight to start with hand pressure, use a Knight multi-purpose starter to get the sabot and bullet into the muzzle. Then use the brass end of the starter to push the bullet on into the barrel. Insert the ramrod and push the projectile down the bore until it is firmly seated against the powder charge. Do not put your hand over the end of the ramrod or bounce the ramrod on the bullet. All it does is to form the nose of the projectile. Once you have determined the load you plan to shoot and hunt with, mark your ramrod even with the muzzle once the bullet has been seated over the powder charge. Use this mark for future reference to ensure that you have seated the projectile properly over the powder charge for each shot. Keeping the rifle safely pointed down range, once again make sure that both safeties are engaged. Inspect the receiver area for spent caps or other foreign materials. Using a Knight Universal Inline Capper, place a cap on the nipple. Now move both safeties to their red firing position. Take aim and fire. Should you have failed to remove all of the oil and grease from the breech plug and nipple prior to loading, or if you have used contaminated powder, you may experience a misfire. Later in this video, we will cover how to remove a contaminated powder charge or a projectile that has been accidentally loaded without a powder charge. Once you have fired, cock the hammer and place both safeties on their safe positions and discard the spent cap. When shooting for accuracy, we recommend that you swab the bore between shots. Use the ramrod extension and cleaning jag. Moisten a patch with either solvent or saliva to wipe the fouling from the bore. Do not run the patch down the full length of the bore in one stroke, as this can cause the patch to stick at the bottom. Start the patch down the barrel gradually, moving the patch with short up and down strokes until you make contact with the breech plug. Remove the patch and turn it over to the clean side. Repeat the procedure and discard the patch. You are now ready to reload and adjust the sights of your rifle. Your rifle has been bore sighted at the factory, but in order for it to shoot accurately for you, it must be sighted to fit your personal sight picture. We recommend sighting in at 50 yards, maintaining a point of impact 3 1/2 inches above the center of the bullseye. This will place a bowed projectile approximately 1.5 inches above the center of the bullseye at 100 yards. And approximately 1.5 inches below the target at about 130 yards. Shooting and hunting experience will determine just how you wish to have your rifle sighted. Your rifle's sights are adjusted by moving the rear sight. Always remember to move the rear sight in the direction you wish the impact of the projectile to move. Elevation adjustments are made by first loosening the screw on the left side of the MK85 rear sight. Then with your fingers, push the sight forward toward the muzzle to raise the sight, or pull it back toward the breech to make the rifle shoot lower. Windage adjustments are made by first loosening the screw on the right side of the MK85 rear sight. If you need to move the point of impact of the projectile to the right, move the rear blade to the right. If you need to move the point of impact to the left, move the rear blade to the left. Once the sight is where you want it, tighten the screw so it doesn't move. Be sure not to over-tighten the lock screw or you will strip the threads in the sight. The rear sights found on the BK92 Black Knight and the LK93 Knight Legend are slightly different than the sight found on the MK85. If your rifle is either of these models, take a few minutes to familiarize yourself with the elevation and windage adjustments. Then just remember to move the sight in the direction that you want to move the point of impact. When shooting exceptionally heavy lead conical bullets, you may not be able to get enough height adjustment with your rear sight. Should this occur, you may need to install a higher rear sight blade or a lower front sight bead or both. When sighting in a scope, follow the scope manufacturer's directions. Once you are satisfied with the adjustments you've made with your sights or scope and have finished firing, you must thoroughly clean your rifle. Refer to your owner's manual. There are two methods for cleaning your rifle. The most widely used method is to use a hot water and soap solution, which we recommend as the best method. The other is to use a commercially available black powder solvent. The steps for cleaning are as follows. Prepare a bench or countertop by laying newspapers or a drop cloth to catch any liquids that spill. When using the hot water and soap method, start by filling a container with enough water to allow the muzzle to be submerged 4 to 6 inches. Use any readily available dishwashing detergent. Make sure the firearm is unloaded. Remove the ramrod from the rifle. Then attach the cleaning jag and ramrod extension and the Knight MP bullet starter. Remove the barreled action from the stock using the 5/32 Allen wrench supplied. Next, remove the trigger from the receiver, again using the 5/32 Allen wrench. Now remove the end cap lock screw on the left rear side of the receiver with the 3/32 Allen wrench. Grasp the knurled portion of the end cap and with a counterclockwise motion, unscrew the end cap from the receiver and pull rearward to remove the hammer assembly. No further disassembly of the hammer group is required or recommended. Clean the front of the hammer thoroughly. Spray the front of the hammer with a water displacing oil and set it aside for reassembly. Place the receiver end of the barreled action into a night field vise. Remove the nipple from the breech plug by inserting the nipple wrench end of the combo tool into the receiver and turning it counterclockwise. The 5/32 Allen wrench may be inserted through the hole in the combo tool to form a T-handle. Place the nipple in the cleaning solution to soak. Remove the breech plug by inserting the screwdriver end into the receiver and engaging the slot in the breech plug. Again, using the 5/32 Allen wrench as a T-handle, turn the combo tool in a counterclockwise direction until the breech plug unthreads from the rear of the barrel. If you have fired a large number of shots through your rifle, it may be necessary to lock the receiver in a padded vise and use a larger Phillips screwdriver as a T-handle to break the breech plug loose. Heavy fouling from a large number of shots can build at the face of the breech plug and into the first couple of threads, making it more difficult to break loose. If you expect to shoot a great deal in one day, it's advisable to pull the breech plug and clean it at regular intervals rather than allow this condition to develop. After removing the breech plug from the receiver, place it in the cleaning solution with the nipple to soak. To clean the receiver and barrel, you'll need the following items: a brush, your ramrod, with the cleaning jag and ramrod extension attached. Also, an option which will allow you to clean the barrel from the receiver end is to attach a Knight multi-purpose bullet starter to the ramrod for an even longer extension. If you choose to use the hot water and soap method, follow these steps. Place the barreled action into the cleaning solution container. Place the muzzle end in first so that it is completely submerged. Using your ramrod with the cleaning jag and extension attached, run the patch up and down the full length of the bore in a pumping motion. This draws soapy water into the bore each time the rod is pulled back, then flushes it back out with the forward stroke. Repeat this step until the bore is clean. A stiff bristled brush makes cleaning fouling from the receiver much easier. The tip of the Knight MP bullet starter can be unthreaded from the end of the rod section and replaced with a brass bore brush, which is ideal for cleaning the inside of the receiver and fouling from the threads at the rear of the barrel. Another alternative is to use a small toothbrush to scrub the inside of the receiver to remove any fouling. After scrubbing the receiver, dip it in the solution to flush away debris. Using a paper towel or cloth, dry all metal surfaces. Remove the brass brush. Attach the ramrod with cleaning jag to the Knight MP bullet starter. Wipe the ramrod dry. Then, using dry, clean patches, thoroughly dry the inside of the bore and receiver. Follow with a generous application of oil to all metal surfaces inside and out for protection against corrosion. If you are using a black powder solvent for cleaning, use the following procedure. Saturate a supply of patches with solvent, and using the ramrod with the cleaning jag and extension attached, run the patches through the bore repeatedly until the last patch shows that the bore is clean. Use of the optional multi-purpose Knight bullet starter extends the length of the ramrod even more, allowing the patches to be pushed through from the receiver end of the barrel. To clean the receiver, pour the solvent into the fouled area of the receiver window and scrub vigorously with the Knight MP bullet starter and bore brush, just as described for the soap and water method. Be sure to clean the breech plug threads in the rear of the barrel. Then wipe away residue with a paper towel or cloth. Oil the inside of the bore and receiver as well as all outside metal surfaces. Using an old toothbrush or similar brush, thoroughly scrub the threads and nipple into the breech plug. Then do the same to the nipple. Dry both and oil. Before reinstalling the breech plug, be sure to generously apply grease to the threads. This will help keep the breech plug from seizing the next time you remove it. Clean your trigger assembly by spraying oil on the sear area located on the top side of the trigger assembly, then wiping it with a cloth or paper towel to remove any fouling that may be visible. Never use soap and water or solvent to clean the trigger assembly. Just make sure to oil thoroughly before assembly to rifle. Once all of the parts are properly cleaned and thoroughly oiled, you're ready to reassemble the rifle. Replace the breech plug in the receiver using the combo tool and 5/32 Allen wrench as a T-handle. Screw it in clockwise until it bottoms out against the barrel. Do not over-torque. Insert the nipple in the combo tool. Then slide it into the rear of the receiver and with a clockwise motion, screw the nipple into the breech plug. Tighten until it is snug. Again, do not over-torque. Attach the trigger to the bottom of the receiver using the 5/32 Allen wrench. Make sure the trigger is straight with the receiver. Use moderate pressure when tightening the trigger screw. To return the hammer assembly to the receiver, place the thumb safety on the forward red firing position. Then, while holding the trigger back, slide the hammer into the receiver. Turning it clockwise, screw the end cap into place until it bottoms against the rear of the receiver. Do not over-tighten. Using the 3/32 Allen wrench, replace the end cap lock screw and moderately tighten. With the secondary safety in the forward safe position, dry fire the rifle to ensure that the rifle is functioning properly. Place the barreled action back into the stock and install the stock screw using the 5/32 Allen wrench. Place the ramrod in the ramrod guide that is attached to the underneath side of the barrel and slide it back into the stock. Once again, check your safeties to see that the rifle is functioning properly. Wipe the rifle with a clean, dry cloth to remove any excess oil and grease. Here are a few tips which will make the rifle even more reliable and enjoyable to use in the field. When using a scope, place a 1-inch long piece of electrical tape on the bottom side of the scope, directly above the nipple. This will prevent a buildup of fouling on the scope. Before loading, always remember to remove all oil and grease from the bore, breech plug, and nipple. Plus, make sure the receiver is free of debris. Once you have fired your rifle, it must be cleaned. However, a unique feature of a night rifle is that it can be easily unloaded in case of a misfire, a projectile being loaded without a powder charge behind it, or if you simply want to unload the rifle without firing. You start by uncapping the rifle. Then follow the disassembly instructions provided earlier, removing the barreled action, then the trigger, the hammer, the nipple, and the breech plug. With the ramrod extension threaded into the ramrod and attached to the Night MP bullet starter, you simply push the projectile and powder charge out of the barrel and into the receiver area, then dump it onto the ground or into a safe container. Run several lubricated patches through the barrel and wipe the inside of the receiver to remove residue. Then wipe down all metal surfaces with a lightly lubed cloth and reassemble the rifle. This feature of all night rifles allows you to remove a load that may have been carried for several days of a hunt and replace it with a fresh charge, or unloading the rifle at the end of a hunt without the hassle of shooting it out and being faced with a thorough cleaning. The rules for safe gun handling are as important with a muzzleloader as any other firearm. However, there are additional safety considerations for muzzleloaders that are not applicable to other types of firearms. Never expose percussion caps, black powder, or pyrodex to heat, sparks, flame, static electricity, or physical abuse, such as subjecting the container, loose powder, or caps to crushing or sharp blows. Never store or mix black powder or pyrodex with smokeless powder. Never substitute smokeless powder for black powder or pyrodex. Never store black powder or pyrodex in caps in the same container. Never charge a muzzleloader with a live cap on the nipple. Never charge a muzzleloader directly from a powder flask, horn, or can. Always use a volume-measured charge, either from a measurer or a single-charge measuring device, which is separate from the primary powder supply container. The projectile must be seated firmly over the powder charge, and airspace between the powder and the projectile can create a condition very similar to an obstruction in the bore. Firing the rifle under such conditions may cause serious injury. Once you have determined the load you intend to shoot, mark the ramrod to indicate you've used the right amount of powder and that the projectile has been properly seated over the powder charge. Let the ramrod rest on a projectile that has been properly seated on the powder charge. Then mark the rod flush with the muzzle. Use that mark for future reference. Never carry a muzzleloader on or in any vehicle of any kind with a cap on the nipple. Never smoke around black powder or pyrodex. We hope this video has been beneficial to you in the proper use and maintenance of your new rifle. Modern Muzzleloading Incorporated is the company that brought muzzleloading out of the frontier and into the 21st century with technological breakthroughs that the competition has yet to touch. Firearms with unmatched reliability. Deadly accuracy. A patented double safety system. And a common sense design for today's black powder hunter. Modern Muzzleloading Incorporated has skilled and experienced personnel available to assist you at all times. You may receive service and help by calling the factory at 515-856-2626 and asking for one of our on-staff experts. Always be sure of your target and make that first shot count. Muzzleloading, or more specifically, hunting with a muzzleloader, is presently recognized as the fastest growing of today's shooting and hunting sports. The lure of the special muzzleloading big game seasons is winning converts over from both the modern firearm and archery seasons. Often the lure is the chance to tag additional game or bonus time in the field. However, for many, the third season opportunities simply mean less crowded hunting conditions. Still, in several states, the number of muzzleloading hunters going afield each fall now exceeds 100,000, and a growing number of states are fast approaching that number. With the growing number of hunters carrying a muzzleloader for the first time, there is now a new concern for keeping the sport safe. Modern Muzzleloading Incorporated, the manufacturers of the Knight inline percussion rifles, recognizes the need for proper training and hunter safety education with muzzleloading guns. And the company is proud to make this video presentation on muzzleloading safety. Safe muzzleloading begins with the purchase of the rifle itself. Whether you've elected to buy a traditionally styled side hammer flint or percussion rifle, or one of the new percussion inline ignition rifles like the Knight MK85. A shooter should purchase the very best quality rifle he or she can afford. There's no such thing as a bargain when it comes to a quality, serviceable, and safe muzzleloading rifle. Avoid models which display poor workmanship, questionable features, and rough, crude-feeling lock mechanisms. Remember, you get what you pay for in performance and safety. Before ever loading and shooting your new rifle, take time to read the owner's manual thoroughly and view the video which may come with a top-of-the-line rifle like the Knight MK85. Familiarize yourself with the features of the muzzleloader and feel comfortable with how the rifle functions before attempting to load and fire the rifle. Never forget that a muzzleloader is still a firearm, and always practice safe gun handling by keeping the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, even if you are absolutely sure that the rifle is unloaded. While the rifle may be brand new and right out of the box, always make sure that it is unloaded or that the barrel is free of any obstructions before proceeding to load the gun. This is easily accomplished by inserting the ramrod into the muzzle and letting it come to rest against the face of the breech plug. The ramrod should be approximately the same length as the bore. When it is inserted into the barrel and drops flush with the muzzle, the barrel is free from obstructions and the rifle is not loaded. Before dumping a powder charge into the muzzle of a percussion rifle, first make sure that the bore and the flash channel of the ignition system are clear of oil or grease left by the manufacturer or from the rifle's previous cleaning. Thread a proper diameter cleaning jag into the end of the ramrod and wipe the bore with a clean, dry patch. If the patch comes out lightly soiled with oil, turn it over and push it back down the bore and leave the ramrod in the barrel with the patch sitting at the face of the breech plug. If the bore is heavily oiled, several patches dampened with a good cleaning solvent may be necessary to prepare the bore for loading. If the bore must be cleaned, follow up with several dry patches, leaving the last one at the face of the breech plug. Next, snap 2 or 3 caps on the nipple. This will burn any oil left in the ignition system. Pull the ramrod and patch from the bore and examine the patch. If the rifle is getting good fire from the percussion cap, it will display a very prominent burn spot. If it does, the rifle is ready to be loaded. Place the hammer of a traditionally styled side hammer percussion rifle in the half-cocked position. If the rifle is a flintlock, make sure the frizzen is open and the hammer lowered all the way down so the flint faces into the pan. With one of the percussion inline Knight rifles, first place the primary side safety in the rear or safe position. Then pull the hammer back to the cocked position and thread the secondary safety forward. Make sure there is no percussion cap on the nipple. Then you are ready to load. Never pour a charge of powder directly into the bore of a muzzleloader from a powder flask, horn, or powder can. Always use a separate measure to remove the charge from the main powder container. This eliminates the chance of an accidental explosion should there be a burning ember left in the bore from a previous shot. For the same reason, always keep the muzzle of the rifle angled away from your face and body as the rifle is being loaded. When loading with a patched round ball, start by placing a lubricated patch over the center of the muzzle. Then, place a proper diameter ball in the center of the patch, and using a short or ball starter, push the patch and ball on into the bore a short ways. Next, use the ramrod to seat the projectile over the powder charge. When loading either a lead conical or plastic saboed handgun bullet, first start the projectile into the bore as far as possible with finger pressure. Then use a bullet starter to push the projectile into the bore far enough to allow the ramrod to be inserted and used to seat the bullet over the powder charge. Always make sure that the ball or bullet is firmly seated over the powder charge. If not, it could act the same as a barrel obstruction, and in some rifles cause the barrel to burst, possibly resulting in injury to the shooter. When seating a projectile over the powder charge, try to do so with one smooth downward push on the ramrod, and always use the same amount of pressure when seating the projectile over the powder charge. Experienced black powder shooters mark their ramrods with a reference mark, which lets them know at a glance whether or not if the projectile is properly seated over the powder charge they've selected. While working up a load is crucial to optimum accuracy and performance with any muzzleloader, never exceed the manufacturer's established maximum powder charges, and always use black powder or Pyrodex only. Never load any muzzleloading rifle with smokeless powder. Keeping the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, the rifle is ready to be capped, or if it is a flintlock, the pan is ready to be primed. To cap and fire a traditionally styled side hammer percussion rifle, first make sure that the rifle is on half cock. Then place a percussion cap on the nipple. Bring the hammer to full cock and fire. To shoot a flintlock, place the hammer on half cock. Dispense a small amount of priming powder into the pan of the lock. Close the frizzen and bring the hammer to full cock. Aim and fire. When capping one of the Knight inline rifles, make sure that both safeties are in their safe positions. Then, using a capper, place a percussion cap on the nipple, using just enough forward force to ensure that the cap is securely in place. To fire the rifle, first thread the rear secondary safety rearward. Then push the primary side safety forward. Take aim on your target and squeeze the trigger. For better accuracy, easier loading of the next shot, and to ensure that the next projectile can be properly seated over the powder charge, take time to run a damp patch down the bore between shots. This keeps fouling buildup to a minimum. Just remember to only dampen the patch using saliva or a black powder solvent. To prevent fouling from caking around the patch so heavily that it sticks in the bore, use short strokes with the ramrod when wiping the bore between shots. Occasionally, a shooter may experience a delayed hang fire or even a misfire with a muzzleloader. This tends to be a more common problem with rifles of the traditional side hammer design than with the more efficient percussion inline ignition rifles. If a rifle fails to fire, continue to hold the gun to your shoulder for about a minute. A hang fire could take upwards of 30 seconds or longer before discharging. Recap the rifle and attempt to fire it once more. If it fails to fire, refer to your owner's manual. Different manufacturers recommend different approaches to getting the load out of the barrel. A common practice with a traditional side hammer percussion rifle is to remove the nipple using the proper nipple wrench. Then trickle in a few grains of powder, replace the nipple, cap the rifle, and fire the load out. Even if the projectile had been loaded without powder, 2 to 3 grains of powder is usually enough to push the ball or bullet out of the muzzle. The removable breech plug that's standard on all night rifles makes dumping a contaminated load from the rifle quick and easy. This feature also allows the muzzle-loading hunter to unload the rifle without having to fire the round out, as with rifles of traditional design. In most states, a muzzleloader must be uncapped, or the priming removed from a flintlock, before the gun can be transported in or on a motor vehicle. Most accidents involving a muzzleloader happen in conjunction with transporting a loaded gun, or unloading a rifle in preparation to transporting the muzzleloader. Take extra precaution to ensure that the muzzle is pointed in a safe direction when removing the cap from a loaded rifle. And never place a loaded and capped rifle in the gun rack of a vehicle or lay it across the seat. It's an accident waiting to happen. Common sense and safe gun handling practices will prevent most muzzleloading accidents. When hunting with a rifle of front-loading design, a hunter accepts new safety responsibilities. When raising a muzzleloader into a tree stand, always first uncap or unprime the rifle. And using a good strong line, tie the rifle in a manner which will keep the muzzle pointed downward. Use the same precaution when crossing a fence or an obstacle, such as an old log. With a modern design like the night rifle, the secondary safety or hammer block can be engaged to effectively prevent an accidental discharge should the rifle be dropped. Once the hunter has crossed the obstacle, the secondary safety can be disengaged and the rifle is ready for action again. Never rely on the half-cocked notch of any traditional side hammer muzzleloader as a safety. It doesn't take much of a blow to break the tip of the sear, allowing the hammer to fall and the rifle to accidentally fire. Always store black powder and Pyrodex in a safe, dry area away from percussion caps. Never smoke when loading with black powder or Pyrodex. Never shoot from the same bench where powder and other loading components are close at hand. And always exercise good judgment when hunting in or near highly populated areas. The limited range of a muzzleloading rifle makes it a logical choice when hunting densely populated areas. Still, always be sure of what's downrange, and always identify your target before taking a shot. Just as important as any other safety factor is to keep a muzzleloader clean. Black powder is very corrosive, and once a rifle has been fired, it must be cleaned. Follow the cleaning instructions provided by the rifle's manufacturer. Using a good black powder cleaning solvent or the old favorite of most black powder shooters, good old soapy water. Muzzleloading is an enjoyable shooting and hunting sport, and by following the safety precautions and tips covered in this video, it can be a safe sport for the entire family.